So good morning, everyone. Our guest this morning is Sue Buckle. Just a little background from on a personal level, Sue and I have been friends for a very long time. Right, Sue?
Right. Yeah.
And I posted her bio on the website. It's playing tricks on me right now. Hang on. And as long as I've known Sue, I didn't know all these things about her, and what she's done for a living. But it sounds like you've been in communication for a long time, eh, Sue?
Mm-hmm.
And but my acquaintance with Sue starts back in the 90s when she first came to North Bay-Mattawa Conservation Authority. And it's been a great relationship, both personally and on a professional level and on a volunteer level. And, you know, our membership has been involved since 1997. When did you come on, Sue? 13 years ago. So
It was 13 years ago. So
yeah,
I think it was 2000. Actually, I think it was 2009
when you came on. Yeah,
when I came back to North Bay. Yeah,
but
it was 2009.
Our relationship as an organization started in 1999 with going into communities in bloom, and it's never changed. It's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
So and North Bay-Mattawa Conservation is going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary, and this is something you may not know. Are you going to get into this, Sue? Tell us a little bit about the history as well.
Sure.
And so I don't know what our community would look like if we didn't have the North Bay-Mattawa Conservation here to gently massage balancing human needs with the needs of the natural environment. I love that. And they are very collaborative and work with all kinds of individuals, organizations, and communities. And I got to tell you, Sue is really so respectful and professional. We're very, very fortunate that this Conservation Authority is right here in our own community. So you're on, Sue. This is your turn.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's been fun to look around and see. I'm glad you have your names. There are some people there whose names I see, who I know of and haven't met. And then there are lots of really familiar faces who I have met at different planting events that you have so generously supported, and cleanup events. So it's nice to see everybody's faces there together. So I grew up in North Bay, went to Canada, lived out in and worked at the Nugget. And so was at the Nugget when the time I left from college, actually started in high school. And then I went on to work in communications in the education sector in Thunder Bay and Calgary, and then was involved in the social service sector. So then made the switch when I came back home, as most North Bayites do at some point in our lives, and was able to work in get work with the Conservation Authority. And communications is a transferable capacity, and so being able to switch from social services to the environment. And I work with some absolutely exceptional people and have learned a lot from them. They're great, they're committed, they're passionate, they're highly skilled and well respected in their fields. So it's a wonderful organization to work with, and cornerstone of what we do is about partnerships and collaboration. So it's been a pleasure, as you know, with Harriet being one of the first people to connect with and being able to embark on multiple projects. So thank you. And I'm really grateful for the invitation to come and speak with everyone. So if it's okay, Harriet, I'll share the screen and start with the presentation.
Oops. Yes, go ahead, Sue.
Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, beautiful.
Perfect. So let's close this down. So as Harriet mentioned, this is our 50th anniversary from 1972 to 2022. And life, as they say, comes full circle, because when I started working at the Nugget as a reporter, one of the first places that I covered was the Conservation Authority. So it's been kind of nostalgic for me talking about history, going back through the old news clippings from the Nugget and to see articles that I wrote when I was 19 years old and 18 years old, 20 years old. So it's yeah, life does sometimes come first circle. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the Conservation Authority, because I would say one of the most common questions we get is, who are you and what do you do? Like, we have no idea. People, only when they come in contact with it, some people think because our name is conservation, we're about stopping any kind of human use on the land, only if it involves hiking and conservation and protection and preservation. Some people think that all we do is issue permits and stop people from doing developing or building houses or anything, or they think we should be stopping people from doing those things. And as Harriet said in the introduction, it's a balancing act, and it's about balancing human needs with the needs of the natural environment. So there's 36 conservation authorities in Ontario. Not all of Ontario is covered. There are only 5 of us in the north. There's North Bay, Timmins, Sudbury, Sioux, and Thunder Bay. And we're organized on a watershed basis. So the mandate in the Conservation Authorities Act was to ensure the conservation, restoration, and responsible management of the water, land, and natural habitats through programs that balance human needs. We do that for our 10-member municipalities through watershed management. And the other key part, again, is about providing leadership, and we work in collaboration with others. Really important, because we can't do all of this just on our own. So here's a map of our jurisdiction under the Conservation Authorities Act. There's 3 pieces of legislation really that govern the work that there's more, but 3 that dictate our jurisdictional area and the responsibilities that we have in each of those areas. But our main is the Conservation Authorities Act, which is about 2,900 square kilometers. And it's based on the watersheds. Again, you'll keep hearing me talk about watersheds. So, you see where the river, Trout Lake, Turtle Lake, Lake Talon, Mattawa River, it flows through multiple municipalities. So for each municipality to set up its own rules is important, but when it comes to the water, everybody lives downstream. So we work with them to manage that on a watershed basis. And ours is based on the Lake Nipissing and Ottawa River basins. We have the shoreline, the North Bay Calendar shoreline of Lake Nipissing, and then over to Mattawa and then through there. So as I said, there are 10 member municipalities that are part of that. But we also, under the Ontario Building Code, did you want to ask a question? Did someone?
No, it was me. I was saying that previous slide, the map, how, like we don't, it's just phenomenal how much water we have in Ontario, fresh water. Wow.
Yeah, and we have to be responsible for it, right?
Yeah.
And under the Ontario Building Code, we have this other larger jurisdiction for on-site sewage system region. So it's the district of Nipissing, which you can see includes the northern section of the Algonquin Park, and then over into Parrystown, Whitestone, Carling, and down to Seguin, all through that area, with the exception of Archipelago Township. But everything else that we do, we don't cover on reserve land. They're self-managing. So West Nipissing is not part of, or the reserve is not part of, but we do extend into West Nipissing. So in that area, for the septic regions, people would need to apply for permits. We have records for them. So if you know somebody who's like looking to buy a property, want to know if there's any work orders. So we do a lot of work with realtors and lawyers who ask on behalf of their clients, is there a septic system? What do you have records on file for those septic systems? And are there any work orders that have been issued against? So we also investigate complaints and concerns for any non-functioning or malfunctioning septic system. So we go up to, it's called 10,000 liters. So if someone is moving like 10,000 liters of fluid through their system, which would be like a resort, then they fall under the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. They do the permitting for that. So in total, in all this area, there's 111 municipalities. So they're organized and unorganized. So we have this huge partnership and the huge service that we provide to municipalities and the people within those municipalities. And Harriet, you were commenting before about, you know, how much water we have, and we do things, as we said, on a watershed basis. So you can look at Amable de Fawn River. So it, you know, comes up from the north end of Algonquin Park, which is part of why that's in our jurisdiction, and it flows into the Mattawa River. Patois flows into the Mattawa. Lavaz, which is quite, which flows into Lake Nipissing here, Turtle Lake. You can see all of these different. So if you're doing something in the top of the Duchesne Creek, which is, you know, and you have a spill that's in the creek up there, it will make its way down into Lake Nipissing. Same thing with the Trout Lake. So that's why it's so important for us to do that planning on a watershed basis. Wistawassing River, the Wassee that comes in into Calendar Bay, everything that happens in here, and Calendar Bay is the source of the drinking water for the municipality of Calendar. So we have a source protection plan in place for drinking water that has policies that talk about what can be done and not done, all within that watershed, to ensure that the lake is protected and anything that flows into Calendar Bay.
Yeah, so there's 35 lakes in our municipal boundaries. Do you kind of manage that too? You know what I mean? Or
yeah, so how we would have influence over that is if we have what's called regulated areas. So if you look at a body of water and then there's setback and a certain distance back from that, and we look at floodplain, which we've just updated all of the floodplain mapping for Chippewa and most of North Bay. So as you back away from that water course, if somebody is proposing to do some development activity and the legislation describes what constitutes development within that area, then they have to see us to get a permit, and our regulations officer will look and ensure that they're following all of the things that need to be followed within the legislation for the protection of that. Floodplains on floodplains you can't build in or develop. There's flood fringes, or there's certain things, there's limitations to what you can and cannot do. Also to wetlands, water courses, and steep slopes. So we want to help prevent for erosion. So if there's development on an area that has a deep slope that's defined as being part of our regulated area, then that would follow that way. So that's, and we do water quality testing. I don't think I have anything in here, but I can get together some information about it, our watershed report card. I think there's 5 or 6 lakes that we do water quality monitoring in throughout the region. So we don't have the resources to do them all, but we do some key ones. So here's a list of all of the programs and services that we do provide. So I like this slide because this gets a lot of ahas from people and not having any realization that we are involved in this way. So planning and development, so we provide comments to municipalities on planning and development reviews. So if a development proposal comes in, they would circulate it to us, and we would make comments to the municipality saying, you need to pay attention to this within our preview. Most of it's based on the provincial policy statement as well from the province about commenting, and let them know. So there's potentially species at risk here. So you would need to connect with MNRF, which now has a different an acronym, but to talk to MNR and find out about that and how it fits in with our policies. That's how we pretty much have a handle of knowing what's coming down the road in terms of our community. And we've got last year was incredibly busy for us. It was record number of permits in the septic program. So we see through planning and development and the proposals that are coming in through that there's going to be more development and busy years ahead. So, and that jurisdiction is part of our larger jurisdiction, not the septic one, but Paula Scott provides comments to, like, there's 4 planning boards. So Almaguin, North, I can't recall the names, but I know that there's 4 of them. So that she would give comments to them if there's consents, like if in those areas people are wanting to subdivide their properties, we would make comments based on those. So the development interference around wetlands, water courses, and steep slope, which is section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. That's what I was making reference to before. And Valerie Murphy is our regulations officer. And so we really believe in what we call pre-consultation. So if you're thinking about doing something on your land, talk to us. And so, because sometimes it used to be people would go ahead and get their plan to build their house and do all that and then come to us for a permit, and we go, well, that's not the best place for that because you've got yourself in the edge of a flood plain or something. So we encourage people to contact us when they're initially thinking about their project. So that's an important piece for people to consider. Drinking water source protection is another program that started. I don't know if all of you remember what happened. I think it was 15, 20 years ago with the water in Walkerton, where the municipal drinking water was not properly managed, and there were people who getting very sick and died from toxins in the water. So pathogens, I think, in the water in Walkerton. So there was a provincial inquiry that came into it, and one of the recommendation was, there were multiple recommendations about increasing the training for people who run water treatment systems. And but one of the pieces that fell to us was about, let's look at the sources of municipal drinking water, look at their vulnerability, do an assessment of them, and let's look at trying to protect those. So so we went through a process back, and it was shortly after I came. I think it started before I came in 2006. But first started with doing, like I said, an assessment of all of those. We were given 21 potential threats, both chemical and pathogens, but they were based on activities that could pose threats to those sources of municipal drinking water. And then lots of technical studies were done. So we developed a better understanding of the water courses then, and those particular water courses. And then there was a source protection plan that was developed that contained policies that would protect. And so it wasn't just those 5 municipalities, Mattawa, North Bay, Callander, Powassan, and South River. It wasn't just those 5 municipalities. It was any municipality where the water that fed, into the water courses that fed into that drinking water source, the policies would apply to any activities within that watershed. So it's been in place for 5 years now, and so we're now in the process of doing a review. One of the other key things, septic systems that are not septic systems. So in Callander Bay, the blue-green algae microsystem within blue-green algae is considered a threat to a drinking water source. And what is known is that phosphorus is a contributing factor to the growth, and malfunctioning septic systems can contribute phosphorus to a water course if it runs into the water course. So, or they can produce phosphorus as a byproduct of a malfunctioning septic system. So there's about 600 septic systems in the Callander-Wassy watershed because of the blue-green algae in the bay and the issue of phosphorus, where those septic systems need to be tested, not tested, they need to be inspected, mandatory maintenance inspections every 5 years. So again, we're into our second round of doing those. And the first year there was money also available to upgrade them. There weren't a whole lot, there was a reasonable number, but we rarely see any issues anymore because of that very proactive approach. We do water quality monitoring in area lakes and streams. There's a number of wells. There's 4 wells that are drilled that we go and monitor that on our website. Under watershed management, there's a watershed report card. We're in the process of preparing for our 2023 report card. We do those every 5 years as well. Overall, we're in pretty good shape compared to a lot of them in Southern Ontario. So you can see the results of those on the website. Flood forecasting and warning, big key part. Most conservation authorities, when they were formed, that was one of the basis of doing that, is the flood forecasting and flood prevention, which ties in with the development and interference as well. That permitting program of protecting people and property. So our staff are part of a group of organizations that monitor the water levels in Lake Nipissing, as well as a group that has commenting and powers to manage the water levels on Ottawa River. So we're part of that in a listening capacity, because our roles is to advise the municipalities and the public of any potential issues coming. Part of that is doing snow course, we measure the snow throughout the winter for both depth and water quality, because then at quantity, because then as we get closer to spring, you know, all the factors that impact flooding, we monitor those, like weather, precipitation, frequency, duration. So if there's going to be a big melt at rain, which would happen in 2019, we had a lot of snow in the winter. It melted very quickly. We had a lot of rain at the same time, and that's what caused our flooding conditions in 2019, that sort of collective factors.
So we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm not monitoring the chat, so.
Yeah, I am. So once you give a permit for septic, does your responsibility end there, or is there a follow-up?
There are 4 steps in giving a permit. So they submit the plan or the application that has to be approved. It's quite extensive and it's very, very technical. So most often people have their septic installers do that application, or they have there are septic designers out there now. Right from the soil type, they have to understand what's going on with the soil, how much gravel, what type of system they're putting in, making sure the size of the system is adequate for the house on the property, and what the water sources and waste sources are going to be within that house. So those are all really scrutinized before they even put a shovel in the ground. And that at various stages, when they lay down the tiles and the tubes, the draining tiles for it, when it's covered in, and then they have to vegetate the top of it, grass it. So it's really thorough once it goes in. So once they have all of those steps, then we get the final approval. They get the final certificate approval on it, and then they're good to go. We investigate when we get complaints to follow up then, and then, as I say, and then there's some of those programs where we will do an inspection. So Trout Lake has had an inspection program that the city has hired us to do on their behalf. And then there's those inspections that are part of drinking water source protection. So
we have another.
Yep.
Sorry, Sue.
Okay.
How safe is it to drink water directly out of local lakes and streams?
I don't know that people have done potability studies on that. There's always insects in them. So in terms of what the quality is, personally, I would always filter it. I don't want to be drinking, if fish have been in there, if you've got geese who are in there, if you've got all of those things, like it's a living, breathing ecosystem, a lake. So you don't know what else you're consuming when you drink lake water. So is it toxic? No, there's lots of people along Trout Lake, right, who draw their drinking water straight from there. So I would still treat it or screen it or something, because I don't want to drink everything from the ecosystem either. So, but we're the things that we monitor for in water quality, the levels are all good. The phosphorus is one thing that we do really keep an eye on regularly. So the one issue, and I can't speak to it fulsomely is that I know the city is remedying, because it's not our responsibility, is the PFAS from Airport and Lee's Creek coming in there. So I know the city's monitoring that, the water in Lee's Creek, and then they're monitoring the lake in terms of for the how that's, but as my understanding is that the level of the PFAS in the lake is not an issue for the drinking water. Further north, it was, but I'm not up to date on what that is. I think that the city has might have some information there. I do believe that they've started looking at a remediation plan. I think they've commissioned consultants and for a remediation plan for that. Any more questions?
Yeah, there's one more. Wouldn't the
Yep.
health unit be able to answer potability? I think they do. Yeah.
They test, I believe, at the beaches.
Mhm.
And so they issue the warnings if the E. coli level is an issue at the beaches, and then they will post. Or they will also issue if there is blue-green algae, they'll post. So I know those are all on their website as well.
Okay.
So in terms of general potability for, other waterways, I don't believe they do that. But you could ask them directly, but they'll look at it again, like where most of the public is. So the beaches and the blue-green algae blooms. So the Ministry of the Environment does the testing. So if you see a blue-green algae bloom, or you think you see a blue-green algae bloom, you contact the spills. It's the spills hotline for Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. They have a website and a 188 number. You let them know, I've seen this and I think it might be. And so they send out staff to test it. And then if it proves that it first they check to see if it's algae, and then they check to see what kind of algae. And if it is a blue-green algae or any kind of algae that is could potentially be toxic to people, then they notify the health unit, and the health unit notifies the public. More questions?
No, we're good, Sue. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. I spoke about the mandatory maintenance inspections of the septic systems that have been identified as a potential threat to municipal drinking water sources. That's in the Calendar-Wassee watershed, and there's a couple of properties in Powassan that's near the Powassan wells. We have 15 conservation lands, trails, and parks. We do stewardship activities, outreach, and special events as well. So if I could see all your faces, I would ask for a show of hands. How many people knew we did all of that?
No, even I didn't know that. Oh, somebody did. There you go.
There you go. So I have this little video. As I was looking through your website and saw all of the things, and know that being active and living fit is an important thing, I thought I'd share with you some information about our conservation areas and trails. Some of them I'll skip through, or Harriet, if you think you guys have visited these and know enough, let me know and I'll skip through some of them, but I will do this. So no, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, because I just have to make sure that the mic is on here. So when I go to share here, share sound, there's that little clip that I meant to do. There we go. We're back. So you should be able to hear this now. I need to work. Oh, no, we went back. So I want to make sure, can you see the YouTube video or
Yeah.
hear it? Okay.
I could hear it before.
And
Not on now. It's not playing.
no, yeah, I paused it because I want to make sure I got it here. There we go.
That's the old Claire Gorge, Sherry.
That's Lavaz.
Oh. Beautiful.
Oops, let's stop that. It's still mastering all of these techie things here. So that's just a little snippet. We have a larger video. I thought I'd give you just a little snippet of all of some of the things that we're doing here. So we're back to the PowerPoint. You see the PowerPoint?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there are all sorts of reasons that we have conservation in trails. That some of it's for protection, some of it is for recreation, some of it is for tourism, some is protecting it because or protecting people because it's a hazard land, like the Mattawa Island that we own in Mattawa, that floods most springs. A lot of the property we own along Chippewa Creek is because it was floodplains, and there was a period in the 80s where we bought up a lot of land there to protect and houses because they were continuing to get flooded in the work that we did there. So I know you guys have been, you ladies have been to a lot of different conservation areas, but we have 15 of them. This map is on our website. Some of them have trails on them, and some of them, like Shirley Skinner and Mattawa Island, Papineau Lake, which is way out here, Papineau. Papineau Lake has a dock and a boat launch. And some of them, like Shirley Skinner and Shields McLaren, they don't have such organized trails there. JP Webster down here, this is a really nice one. It's out in Nipissing. Quite a good hike. There's a lake at the end of it. It was land that was donated to us. So we either purchase it, it gets transferred to us from another Crown agency, or a municipality or MNR transfer to us, or it's donated to us. So we have a number of conservation areas like Shirley Skinner and Shields McLaren and JP Webster that were donated to us. So lots of them have many different features. So they're all fun to explore. So Cape Paceway, I'm sure all of you have walked on that. One of the things, and the Kinsman Trail, you know, where the eco path is. This is the Cape Pace. Yeah, this is Cape Pace over the Lavaz River. It's one of the only parts of the trails that we allow motorized vehicles on. The snowmobiles use it. This bridge had seen a lot of wear and tear. So the deck had to get replaced, and the actual infrastructure of it had to have some repairs to it. And the snowmobile clubs came in and contributed money to do that work. This little bear here is a Conservation Areas Award. So all of the conservation authorities, conservation staff get together every year. You can submit and apply for to get the Innovation Award. And we have won it twice. So for innovation in comparison to all of the other conservation areas, and they vote for it together. So all of the conservation staff who are at the conference, their annual conference, vote for it. So, and then the Chippewa Creek Eco Path, I will new share, just make sure I get it.
We invite you on a journey filled with history and excitement as we travel together down the Chippewa Creek Eco Path. Rich in history and ecological value, Chippewa Creek is located in North Bay, Ontario, with the Eco Path running for 3.2 kilometers from Thompson Park to Lake Nipissing. And by the time it reaches the point where it flows into Lake Nipissing, it's drawn from 19 kilometers of water courses, draining an area of about 40 square kilometers, beginning at the headwaters, flowing from the escarpment. Chippewa Creek Eco Path is a community initiative to restore and enhance the natural values, heritage, and ecosystem of the creek. Through stewardship and education, efforts are targeted at balancing the human needs with the needs of the natural environment in relation to the creek. On October 4, 2012, these community partners gathered along the shores of Lake Nipissing at the mouth of Chippewa Creek to launch the Chippewa Creek Eco Path and to unveil the kiosk.
Yay, I remember that day. Oh.
Nipissing First Nations people, the creek is once again a place where the community gathers to celebrate nature, honor community, and preserve the value of the creek for generations to come. Every day, our relationship with nature influences our lives. We are wired up through technology, which we've decided to use as a tool to draw people to the creek and the ecopath. A series of interactive elements has been developed to enhance the visitor's experience with the creek and its surroundings. A collection of pertinent data is archived online to engage and educate the public by offering a glimpse into the past and present-day ecosystem. Visitors can connect to this data through the information desks found along the path. But technology can't pull a cart out of the creek, and you can't feel the sticky milk of a milkweed on a website. So, the Adopt the Creek program will help individuals, groups, and schools do all of that. Invite them to be a part of the ecopath, and at the same time, further the stewardship and restoration of the creek. As part of the program, we invite you to help with cleanups and take on a stewardship portion of the creek and encourage others to get
There
involved.
you are.
Yeah.
North Bay-Mattawa Conservation Authority, in partnership with the City of North Bay, North Bay Heritage Gardeners, North Bay Indian Friendship Center, Nipissing Botanical Gardens, and RBC Blue Water Project, proudly presents the Chippewa Creek Ecopath. For more information, please visit our website at chippewaecopath.ca.
I just have to stop this.
Oh,
It
that's
was
a
a while, eh? Going
that's a
back.
nice little blast from the past. I like that.
Yeah. I just-
2012. Oh my God.
That was a while, right?
A lot of our members now don't know that Living Fit way back when we started, we're at the very beginnings of the Heritage Gardeners. We were the first team in
Mhm.
1996. Then we were involved in the unfolding of the ecopath. We've been in and the botanical gardens, which are now Trees for Nipissing. Many different things. Yeah.
Yeah, the partnership, that's why, where we talk about and saying we can't do this all on our own, and Living Fit has always been, and Harriet have always been there when we've undertaken an initiative. So your respect for the environment is real plus. We talked about the Adopt the Creek in that video, that's that old video, but we're really happy to be partnering with Clean Green Beautiful now to be able to do those cleanups along the creek, because Clean Green Beautiful has a lot of momentum and a lot of volunteers and a lot of people who care. We get calls often, so we've decided that probably is the best way of looking after the creek, is to partner with Clean Green Beautiful and have them sort of lead now on those cleanups. So the Laurentian Escarpment Conservation Area, it's one place where we're looking at they're multi-use trails, but they're very, very popular with the mountain bike community. Thank you to the McNutt family. I noticed Ms. McNutt there. So thank you to the McNutt family for always being supporters of our trails, and way back when they did the creation and the opening of these trails, we're big supporters. So thank you. We are looking at developing a master plan to revise some of the use. We don't own all the land. We have some, Department of National Defense, the City of North Bay, and 2 private property owners. Those trails cross all of those lands. So we are in the process of having agreements in place for the future of those trails to make sure, because they were there were no formal agreements in place when it was originally set up, and now we need to solidify that, particularly because they're very keen about looking at it being working with the ski hill, and the hope to make the ski hill a year-round place and business, providing recreation and tourism, and the trails will play a role in that for them. So the Eva Wardlaw Conservation Area, and we talked about flood forecasting and floodplain management. This is the backwater control structure and backwater. So what happens was, when the Lake Nipissing level goes up, what was happening is the water was going back up Parks Creek, and there's about 350 homes up there, where when the water backed up would flood the sewage systems or the water disposal systems and cause, there was on ground flooding, but there was also issues with the system, the sewage system there. So this was installed to protect. It's called a back flood control structure. And so when the water level reaches, and they've got a guidelines and say, well, it reaches this many feet and this many feet and this many feet, these logs go in to stop the water from going up. But usually it's a time of raining and incoming water, so you can't let Parks Creek build up. So there's pumps right in this structure here, which pumps the water around the dam and comes out this way so that it can stop the water from filling up here and flooding as well. In 2019, when we had that water, we actually had to bring in external pumps because this didn't have the capacity to move as much water as what was coming in. And so we brought in some very large pumps that also added to this to pump the water out and around. So some conservation authorities in other parts of the province have multiple structures like this that they do for managing water levels. So it's a big role that conservation authorities play throughout the province in terms of managing potential flood risks. Laurier Woods, you've been there, 240 acres. It's the only property that we co-own with, and it's very unique in Ontario for a private volunteer group to co-own conservation land with a conservation authority. And the Friends of Laurier Woods are just awesome because they do a lot of the maintenance and trail improvements. And right now they're trying to raise funds for 2 new boardwalks that need to be replaced there. And be very busy in there in this time of year because the migrating birds, it's just like, it's not an official sanctuary, but it is a place that's very, very popular with migrating birds. And I think every Saturday in May, Dick Taffel takes people on hikes. It's a birding hike, bird watch to look at all of the birds that come through. So that would be on the Friends of Laurier's website if you wanted to check out those. I mentioned Mattawa Island. It's a day use park. It's also the finish line of our 64-kilometer Mattawa River canoe race. There's the island there where Mattawa meets the Ottawa. It floods most spring. If you do go out there, there's lots of poison ivy. So stay on the path and don't be getting adventurous. There is a really nice beach there we work in partnership with the municipality of Mattawa to maintain it. A lot of people don't know about Powassan Mountain, the Pines Interpretive Trail. It's up in behind East Home, beautiful views of the hills around there. The Pines is managed by a volunteer group in Powassan, and the municipality supports it. We own the land that's on the top, and the trails reach up there. So that's a nice, pretty hike too. Corbeil Conservation Area out on Highway 17, really nice self-guided trail. You go through various boardwalks and landscapes. Lots of rock formations that were created by glaciers during the last ice age. I quite like Corbeil. It's a nice, quiet, pretty walk there too. Eau Claire Gorge Conservation, that's our gem. It's one of the first lands that we bought. There's actually 400 acres there. There's a lot. If you've been to the gorge across the river, we own across there as well. So, and that is, it's roaring. We open up, there's a long road in, and we close the gates in the winter, but people snowshoe in, and which is just fine. We do before the Mattawa River canoe race. So on the Friday before, we do a special hike there. It's probably one of the only guided hikes we do, few guided hikes we do. And we always get someone to come and guest hike it. And so Laura Kaplinski from the Canadian Ecology Center this year is going to do the guided hike. She is now certified in forest bathing. She would be a really good speaker for you to have sometime. So that
What's
whole
her name?
Laura Kaplinski. So at the Canadian Ecology Center, I can send you her contact info.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so she's going to give an introduction to forest bathing and do a nature hike as well. So we've had people there talk about geology, forest ecology, Métis heritage. So it's always a really well attended hike. And I think I've seen some of your faces there. we have generally provided a bus from North Bay to go out to the gorge that morning. So just and the cost is a donation. So so keep that, it's on our website, and then we'll get on the New Race website, we'll start doing some promotion closer to the event, and if you want to sign up to take the bus. So so we make sure we come back with everyone that we go with. And I would, it is the hike is a little rigorous. We've had people come before. We just want to make sure everybody's able to do that, because we've had people come before who've had difficulty with it. So part of the trail is a little rugged. So just to keep that in mind, but beautiful views, beautiful.
Just a question, Sue, about that.
Sure.
You had just mentioned that you own the property on the other side of the gorge. Are there
Right.
trails there, and is there access to them?
No, there are no formal trails there, and no, there's no access there. We've often toyed with, wouldn't it be great to put a bridge across there, you know, and have that and do some trails, but it's not in terms of yeah, it's in terms of the costs that are involved in the priorities, it's not on our priority list or our radar. It's on our dream list, but not on our doing. So it's a nice, the trails that are there are quite nice. We also have at Eau Claire a replica of a loggers cabin, because the logging history in Booth is really significant in that area. So that's a great place to see and hike too. So
You have 10 minutes there.
sorry, pardon?
Yeah, just a 10-minute warning.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was looking at the time, so I'm going to skip this, and get on to our 50th anniversary
this is the biggie.
celebrations.
Yeah.
So we're really happy that we have, embarked. We kicked it off last Friday, and thank you, Harriet, for being there. We've unveiled a new logo, but we have a whole series of activities planned for the year coming ahead. So one of the things is a shout out to our environmental heroes. Whoops, go backwards, Sue. So there's lots of people doing incredible things, wonderful things for the environment, and nobody hears about them. And so we wanted to create a place and a forum for recognition of anybody who's doing something, who's contributing to the preservation, protection, or improvement of the environment in our watershed over the last 50 years. It's time for them to be recognized. So we're looking in the Nipissing, Mattawa, the watershed, Parry Sound, Nipissing District, Parry Sound District. We've recognized Friends of Laurier Woods. We've recognized Friends of the Vase Portage. And next Wednesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll be acknowledging Harriet Madigan and the Women to Power of 10 Living Fit Inside Out as watershed heroes. So thank you, all of you, for all of the wonderful things that you have done to protect and contribute to the environment, and the volunteering and the planting and cleaning, and what you do for the community, really, beyond the environment, because we look at our social, emotional, and environmental health, and you've done you make significant contributions to our community, all of you, from Living Fit. So
I bought my board today. I bought a board today, my pine cone, and on behalf of Women 10 Living Fit, Earth in a Nest. And so that's for all of our members. It's wonderful.
I'm going to wrap up with that. So there's a couple slides, and then we're going to talk about that piece. So the Mattawa River Canoe Race, we had that's 64 kilometers from North Bay to Mattawa. Paddlers come from across Canada. I think it's 5.5 hours is the record for doing that. We've had people in like 75, I think, is the oldest paddler we've had in it. So we're excited to be able to offer that. If you know people who are youth or students or who are looking for volunteer hours, we're looking for some volunteers to help us during the day. Some of it's just sitting at a checkpoint and making sure, because we keep track of safety. So we have 3 checkpoints throughout the race, and we keep track of the numbers on the canoes to people go through to make sure everybody is safe and secure. So if you know anybody, or if any of you would like to spend a nice day sitting by the river, counting people going through the checkpoints, we're looking for volunteers to help with that.
Contact me closer to the date, Sue, or whenever you're ready to get volunteers, and I'll just put it out.
Terrific. We also are giving this year educational bursaries and awards to Nipissing Canada and the environmental high skills major students. These are the 4 schools, high schools, which have environmental high skills. And there'll be something more coming about this. This was one of the original projects that we talked about with on the EcoPath, and we finally were able to get some funding. We're creating this special place, outside space, outdoor space, where we recognize Indigenous and non-Indigenous can gather together. So watch for more announcements on that coming forward. We're going to have a watershed images photo contest. So the information will be posted in May 15th. And at the end of the year, we'll select 15 photos and publish a calendar for next year. So, and you asked about the history. We've been going through our old minutes and old annual reports and putting those into a chronology, and they'll be posted on the website too. There's some really interesting history. So. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you, and Harriet spoke of it, is so whereas the heroes are recognizing people who've done something for a watershed, we've created what's called the Boardwalk of Champions. And that is, that is an opportunity for you to acknowledge a champion in your life with an engraved plaque on one of our boardwalks. We have them at the new boardwalk at the Eau Claire Gorge Conservation Area, Kinsman Trail on the Main Street Bridge, and there'll be a new pedestrian bridge over Chippewa Creek at Oak Street, and we'll be able to put there. So with $100 donation, the funds will support those bursaries. We haven't done them for a couple of years because we haven't had the resources. So we see this as an opportunity to be able to continue to do that program. You know, it's a brilliant idea, borrowed in part from the pergola down at the down at the waterfront. Thank you, Harriet. And Troy, our lands manager, has also seen this done in other conservation areas as well. That's very popular. It does not have to be somebody who has, you know, done something for the environment, just somebody that you want to remember or celebrate, a champion in your life who's inspired you or contributed to the well-being of the watershed. You can submit your application for the pine cone, we're calling them the pine cones, on our website, as well as the Watershed Heroes. You can submit all the information for the Watershed Heroes as well. We'll recognize for the Watershed Heroes with information on the website and a certificate. Here with a donation, you'll get a plaque that will go on these boardwalks.
So I chose Chippewa Creek Oak Street Bridge.
Perfect.
Because it's going to be brand new, so I know it'll be installed.
And it will be a high traveled area because that's just that main feed connecting, you know, that's the one near the ONR buildings where it will be, and it connects Kinsman and Cape Pace. So that's what we do. Those are the projects we have planned for our 50th. 3 minutes for any questions.
Yeah, any questions? Unmute if you like. Raise your hand. Gee, I thought I knew everything there was to know about the Mattawa Conservation Authority, but nice to have a refresher. And remember, there's trails I haven't been on yet, I'm realizing. You know, the South River one. Yeah, go ahead, Bonnie. Or sorry, Debbie.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Okay. We've been having ongoing conversations among ourselves. Recently, there's an awful lot of concern among the group about the clear cutting that's been done. Right, Bonnie, do you want to take over this question? I know you're... the clear cutting that's been done, like Main Street West, from like the Mother House all the way across the road, the new road there, right to the hospital just about. And we're all shocked that so much clear cutting was allowed to take place, and how that ever came to be. Is it because some of it is, not all of it, but like on the Mother House side, is it because it's on First Nations land? Or how was all of that clear cutting allowed to happen? Do you know anything about it, Sue?
I don't know anything about that land in particular, but to talk about tree removal in general. So I guess private property, depending on how it is zoned and what proposals are to do with that, there are not real legislation in place about cutting down trees, simply cutting down trees. So we got lots of comments when they were developing off the end of Janey with those residential developments there that people had enjoyed. And we ended up meeting with some of the residents to say, excuse me, when someone has a plan of subdivision or they own that property and it's designated for development, one, we don't have any authority over, trees in that way. We would look at development in its relationship to the water, and there are certain tests, specific tests in the legislation that we look for in terms of how it is done. So the removal of trees is probably one of the things we get lots of calls about and most of the concerns about, but the controls on that are limited. In a plan of subdivision or in a development proposal that someone may have gotten a permit from the municipality on, sometimes in site plan control agreements, they can specify some things about it, but the scope of what it is that they can do or don't do about trees, it depends on the land. So the escarpment, for instances, there are certain policies in place in the official plan about protection of the escarpment per se. So you'd have to take a look at what's in place for zoning, what's in place for the official plan, and what it is the person who owns that property, what they are planning to do with it, and what they have permission from the city to be able to do it. If it's in a regulated area by us, the removal of trees is not one of the tests that the legislation gives us the power to comment on. So we might ask them if it's near wetland, like it depends on the land and the zoning of the land and the features that are on land. If it's on the wetland, then we want to really be protective of the hydrologic function of the wetland. So there will be things that we would look at in that way, but there
has to be some,
trees.
oh, I'm sorry. There has to be some impact on the watershed on both of those properties. I mean, it's right on the lake.
Yeah, it depends on what, again, it depends on what they're doing and what it is. So if it's zoned and they're allowed to develop it and it's zoned for developing and the official plan says it's okay for developing, and our regulations folks take a look at it and see that the that the water course is protected through multiple other means, there's more of a push to do what they call low impact development, ensure that developers use different kinds of strategies to protect the land. So having permeable surfaces and not having hard surface pavement, or how that can do. There are ways to do things. We want to make sure that any runoff is appropriately managed on the property to go if there's a water course, if it's within the regulated area. Really important that they manage it during construction processes. So there's lots of steps that our regulations officer would look for to ensure that things during the construction process don't go in. But what I will do is I will have a conversation with our regulations officer and just ask her more about, about that issue of tree removal. It's pretty much what I understand it to be, but she might have some different languages and insight that I can share with Harriet, and she can share with you about it. But it's one of the things when it's zoned and they have the right to develop it, we look to make sure it's done in a responsible way. So the removal of trees is mitigated in other ways. So it's sad to see trees go, but
we have to, I have someone coming on for chair yoga, Sue. So,
okay.
But I did want to just add to that. Yesterday, I found out that there's a grandfather clause, and there have been certain environmental regulations that are in place as of a certain date, but anything that was bought before that there are certain things they can do that they don't have to follow the regulation. That's what, I'm not totally sure. I'm gonna find out though from Ian Kilgore after yesterday's approach. But Sue, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's
You're
very
welcome.
informative. And listen, everybody, think about if there's somebody you want to remember, it's not a heavy cost, really, $100. I am remembering all of you and wonderful things that you've done for our community and our environment with our board. And hopefully, if you think of anyone, go think about that. And it's easy to do. I did it this morning, Sue, on the website.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Harriet.
Thanks.
Thanks,
If you want,
everyone.